Hello travelers! I am Lorkeen, your traveler's guide to Tyria. In our last episode we haunted Mad King's life and death, and I was telling you that being chopped to pieces was not the end of his story. As promised, today we will investigate Mad King's shenanigans since he was forced to abdicate from life. So gather round my loyal subjects, for we are going to dive straight in the underworld. I hear people are always dying to get in here. Underworld is a place in the mist that used to belong to Doom, the god of death. Here we go again about the gods, I know, but it's important. It is said that Doom was cruel and ate the souls of the dead, preventing resurrection and in death. Then around the year 48 before Exodus, Grinth, a demigod and the son of Dwayna, challenged Doom, and with the help of 7 mortals, defeated the god of death. Grinth takes Doom's powers and sealed the fallen god in the Hall of Judgment in the underworld, as Grinth was not powerful enough to just slay Doom. The 7 mortals became the 7 Reapers, and each is rewarded with a part of the underworld. Interestingly, the first section of the underworld is a labyrinth. And now we get back to our Mad King. After he died, Oswald ended up in the underworld, and he liked it so much that he found a little corner, where he made a new home. I mean kingdom. The souls that were hunting the place became the Lunatic Court. This place may or may not be in the underworld's labyrinth, which would make at least some of the Mad Realm a labyrinth, within the mist. Anyway, the Mad King's powerful magic allows him to still return to Tyria, but the seals placed on him limit that visit to 1 day a year. Meanwhile, 250 years have passed, until one day, when the steward of the Mad King appears in Tyria, looking for a brave and skillful adventurer for a diplomatic mission. It turns out that the Mad King has sensed some wicked foreboding tremors in the underworld, and he needed someone to go talk to his royal ally, King Frozenwind, and see what happened. For this mission, first the hero needed to travel to a location where they would find the voice of Grinth, like the Temple of the Ages. We visited that place too, link attached. Then the hero would use a tonic to disguise themselves into a candy corn golem, to be recognized as an agent of the Mad King, and then the voice would grant them access to the underworld. That's not all. After that, the hero would have to navigate their way to King Frozenwind. Remember the Hall of Judgment where Doom was locked? King Frozenwind guards that. He tells the story of the battle between the gods and how, while imprisoned, Doom continued to devour the souls of those that died inside the underworld, giving him enough power to occasionally stir. If he would awake and take control of the underworld, it would be disastrous. The fundamental rules of life, death, and in death, would change, a state of affairs that would be unacceptable to a spirit lord like Mad King Thorn. The hero comes back, delivers the news to the king's steward, the steward goes back to his master. But the king requires more information. And a pie. But that's the steward's problem. Anyway, the hero goes back to the temple, transforms, asks permission from the voice, goes back to the underworld, and this time they go visit the 7 Reapers and ask for their opinions. The Reapers go investigate the Hall of Judgment, and talk to King Frozenwind. It turns out not only that Doom was gaining back some power, but the ancient enchantments Grinth created were also weakening, and Doom could break free. His elite skeletal soldiers started to appear in the underworld soon after. So the Mad King placed a bounty on these creatures. But since killing them would only make Doom stronger, the king also decided to share from his healthy supply of everlasting mobstopper, allowing the hero to just capture the weakened skeletal soldiers. But that doesn't seem to solve the situation either, and since the Mad King felt his strength within the underworld weakened still, he decided to return to his, well, pies and invisible pony, leaving the hero to face Doom alone. That meant the hero needed to go back to the underworld, do a massive cleanup job, involving 10 quests, and then they could engage Doom in the Hall of Judgment, while the Reapers would force the god into dormancy. As Doom can't be killed, these kinds of events started to happen quite regularly after that, and every year, the Mad King would reward anyone who would help with this issue. Even today, you can visit the Hall of Chains raid wing, and help with the ongoing effort of keeping Doom at bay. Yeah, the world would have ended without the Mad King. And some people took notice and started to question the narrative. Next big adventure in Mad King's own life is in 1079, when Sulla came to power. The return of the Crichton royal bloodline to the throne gave him a boost of confidence, and broke one of the seals put on him. And that gave the king and his lunatic court some funny ideas, about performing a fancy ritual so that the Mad King would be able to return. But as these sort of things usually require some artifacts, his royal squashiness sent the Countess of Hakewood to recover some of his heirlooms. Unfortunately, a horde of revolting peasants burned them, along with his palace, most of his courtiers, and, well, the king himself. So the Countess located 3 suitable heirlooms, and then she convinced a hero to go and liberate these prized possessions. The first one is a most prized half-eaten apple, still in the king's saddlebag, which was in Bryce the stable hand's possession. Geoffrey the butler still had the king's left slipper, while guardsman Brofhies the deserter deserted from the king, taking along a copy of Moa soup for the demented soul. Next step of the plan is commandeering a mortal vessel of noble origins, so a visit to the mausoleum and Majesty's rest is required. Also for the king's safety, the ingenious Edens have to be dealt with. They sought to overthrow the king by means of a rock. A rock bigger and more improbable than even your wildest imaginings can fathom. Don't try! In preparation for the king's return, a gift was also in order, and what better gift for such an avid musician like the Mad King Thorn, than the instrument with the most regal of sounds, the harmonica. And it so happens that a notable instrument maker lived in the Ascalon settlement. Except the Ascalon settlement was overrun by evil residents, which were, well, zombies. The Countess takes the news of this as a sign that their rituals to permanently resurrect King Thorn were working, though they may have been a little bit off target since they resurrected his subjects instead. And she was right. And Commodon, another member of the lunatic court, was also working hard in preparation for the ritual and the Mad King's return. The emissary of King Thorn tasked the hero with convincing the ghost of Zola, fifth and one of the king's favorite wives, to travel to Crita, so that she would act as a beacon for his soul. She eventually agrees, just because she wanted to be the first in line to send the Mad King right back into Grinth's waiting arms. Another item on the emissary's list was not only to aid in the king's release, but to also shape the political climate in preparation for his return. The greatest scholars in the lunatic court calculated that to open the floodgates of death, Grinth has to be overwhelmed in paperwork, and this could be accomplished by having a word with none other than the king's old pal, Palawa Joko. And that word could be, "Your mother was a dredge and your father smelt of Juning berries." Enraged, Joko would send wave after wave of his enslaved undead army to engage the hero in battle, resulting in a long line of souls waiting at Grinth's door. And so the king could return to the mortal realm unnoticed. And the last task for this ritual required the hero to deliver a killing joke to Quetzalcoatl, a boss from Alona, who was guilty of being as good at telling jokes as the Mad King himself. And that just can't be! And with that, the ritual was complete, the barrier had weakened, so the Mad King Oswald Thorn could finally return to Crita. And yes, it worked! The seals broke. Those on the royal pony anyway, the king's most mighty invisible steed, Gumdrops. Mr. Gumdrops. So our hero had to go and find Mr. Gumdrops, who ran straight to the Bone Palace, because Thorn had specifically trained it to seek and destroy anything that smells like mummy. Yeah, this whole equestrian deal is a reference to My Little Pony. This was a minor setback for the lunatic court. They are not so easily discouraged and they try the ritual every year. Eventually, they might get it right. Have you noticed how at the moment, the Mad King visits Tyria for weeks, instead of just one day? Back then, he would reserve his visit for the Halloween finale, on 31st of October, when he would appear every 3 hours in a mushroom circle, in Lion's Arch and Commandant. He would command his fans' attention for around 30 minutes, playing rock paper scissors and Mad King Says. The king's adoring fans who would want to spend more time with His Majesty, could talk to the sorceress of Kessex and gain access to the king's realm, named at that point Scarred Psyche, and fight by his side against the invading Joko and 5 of his generals. The fans had to be fast, in part to humiliate Joko, but more importantly, it was bath night for Mr. Gumdrops, and King Thorn is never late to bath night. And so years pass. Decades, then centuries. the Mad King slowly faded into legend. But one day, close to Halloween, lunatic courtiers start to be spotted around Krita, and there have been reports of increasing paranormal activity. The Durmond Priory has been mobilized since the word boo, with Magister Tassie in charge. She is the foremost living expert on the Thorn family, and all things related to Mad King Thorn himself, and that is a worthwhile pursuit despite what her peers might think. Tassie co-opted a bit of archive tech that scans for very old energy, and by that she means she stole it from the College of Statics. Don't tell Paka. With this device you can find ghosts from the Mad King's past, you can interview them and make a video about it. You'll be a legend at the Durmond Priory and your contribution to history will go down in their annals, if you know what I mean. Regardless, as Halloween draws near, there is no more doubt that the Mad King is real, and there are those who claim that he would return on the 500th anniversary of his death. Doors start to appear, doors to his realm, and even to his clock tower. And to the Durmond Priory's annoyance, adventurers are even traveling through them. Weird occurrences also happen in Lion's Arch too, where the Lion's Court starts to change, from cracks in the fountain to water turning to tar. All of these culminate on the days prior to Halloween, when the Mad King makes his appearance in his overdramatic style. He busted out of the lion statue in Lion's Arch. Word is spreading quickly that, in his current state of power and rage, the Mad King must not be allowed to leave his realm. So adventurers are urged to enter the Ascent to Madness dungeon to stop him. With his powers diminished, the Prince of Pun seems to have been limited to the initial terms of his ancient curse. He can only visit Lion's Arch once a year, on Halloween, and only just for fun. And the Mad King doesn't let down. On the day of the Halloween, he comes to the Grand Piazza in Lion's Arch, and like in the good old times, he entertains his subjects with jokes, candy and a round or two of Mad King says. And so passed the first festival in Guild Wars 2.
Remember when the Mad King burst through the lion statue?
I do. It seems every time he comes around, our lion statues are destroyed. Maybe he had a mean cat when he was a kid.
Do you think he'll try that again?
I hope not. Evan Nashblades requested extra Lion Guard support since the Mad King reappeared.
But in the next year, His Lunatic Majesty had a family reunion with his son. Remember when I told you that Oswald locked his son into the reliquary and sent the box to Istin? Well, it never made it there. The reliquary was stolen a bunch of times and eventually made its way to the Nolani Academy. And then, when Ascalon fell, the box remained buried here. Until Tassie tracked it down, hoping she would find the Mad King himself in the reliquary. But a charge disintegrated when he tried to interact with it, and she barely got the containment field to hold. Tassie knew she needed to call for assistance, and sure enough, as soon as the assistance arrived, the bloody Prince Edric Thor springed out of the box. He wasn't very pleased to discover he was not in the Mad Realm, as he was hungry for revenge against his father. So he starts attacking, and he would have probably won, if Tassie and her assistant, in their desperation, wouldn't have started to throw at the prince everything they could get their hands on. Including candy corn, his one weakness. They managed to contain him with what candy corn they found around, and later, Tassie created a glaze from live candy corn, in the hopes that it wouldn't dry as fast and crack, like normal candy. So the prince was sealed again in the box, and the academy was locked, and you can't visit it. I tried. But he could find his way in the Mad Realm. It is worth noting that some of the haunted doors are different. That's because around 1325, part of the Lunatic Court rebelled against the king. They were led by Baron Weicker, and their loyalty was for the true demented and unknown at that time heir. This is why we have now two types of haunted doors, and why the rebels are south of the labyrinth, and they will fight forces still loyal to the king, stationed north.
Nice statue you have here, Nashblade. It would be such a shame if something nasty were to happen to it.
Just keep your hands off it.
Oh, or else...
or else I'll
Good
eat
to see
all
you.
this candy corn and tell your son where to find you.
How dare you threaten me? You're speaking to a king! I have no interest in your brittle, relatively unguarded statue. Here's a little something for all my loyal subjects.
He's not gonna blow it up. Not on my watch.
The Tower of Nightmares made its appearance in Tyria on the same Halloween, but that's a story for another time. At the present, Edric's place in the labyrinth is taken by Joko, and if you don't know how the Vabian prince got here, I recommend visiting the 4th season of the Living World story, because I am not going to spoil it for you. But I can tell you that when what happened happened, the lunatic court built on the existing plan and they journeyed all over Tyria, from Alona to the far north, searching for bits and trinkets for a ritual. They really loved doing that. It's up to you to discover if they got it right or not. The Bloody Prince was moved on a bony shipwreck, where he contemplates his fate, and the idea of becoming a better self. It's never too late. And that gets us around the present day. But we can't leave the Mad King's realm without taking note of some notable nobles. Like in the past, Bruce the Herald runs around Lion's Arch announcing the king's return. He did change his horse for a Springer, and he seems to have a Bruce Jr. that participates in the Labyrinth's race, alongside Mr. Gumdrops. Like at the races in Tyria, we find here a masked individual. This one is Masked Rider H, and like the Masked Roller F, their resemblance to the Farron family may or may not be just a coincidence. Snargle Goldclaw wrote a novel called Heart of Thorn. You can feed Madam Cookie candy corn and she will give you a 25% more magic find, but she can't move to your home instance, as she is bound to the Mad Realm by the conceptual chains of this mist sinkhole. Veteran Brigadier General Colonel used to be Colonel in the Scarred Psyche, where you fight Joko and his armies. The Countess of Hakewood bears the name of a village overrun by undead. You would pass by there on your way to meet Dinos for the first time. Drewbird's body is still in Dry Top, where we first meet him in Gates of Maguma.
Oh, it's you insatiable mendicant. For the last time, I have nothing for you to drink. Please, Father needs only a little more. You bottomless bipedal beluga! I'd strangle you if somebody hadn't already beat me to it. Oh, I can't stay mad at you, you chubby little tippler. Come, let us eat a few villagers and terrorize a few fish, huh?
And speaking of terrorizing villagers, next week we will go back to Caledon Forest and see what nightmares are terrorizing the villagers around the Witchmire Swamp. But first, Lorkin says, click the like button and tell us in the comments who is your favorite lunatic. And make sure you are subscribed and the notification button is on, so you don't miss our next adventure. Until then, happy exploring!